Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today is day 57 in the ongoing war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine, and I'm starting to zoom in to the area near Kiev, and I wanted to take the audience to two what I would classify as two target areas inside of Kiev. And I wanted to have a look at two of these areas that I wanted to have a little bit of a discussion about. And first and foremost is right here is the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. Obviously, you can see this sprawling multi-block compound. This is the headquarters of the armed forces of Ukraine. And further to the what we would say the northeast in this direction. Let me see if I can find it. And it's just south of here, I believe. Right here. This is the headquarters, and this is another sprawling compound of the security services of the state of Ukraine. So key command and control sites for the security services of Ukraine. We have seen the SB units, specifically Detachment Alphas or Detachment A's, in this conflict. They were part of some of the units that prevented some of the initial advances by some of these Chechen units towards Kiev, reportedly, when Russian forces were moving towards the capital from approximately 2 to 3 different directions. So as we look at these sites, or these what you could construe as legitimate targets, the question is, have they been struck by the Russian Federation? Has Russian cruise missiles hit these targets? And I am currently of the understanding that has not occurred. So again, there's the Ministry of Defense, and then further to the east, just south of St. Sophia's Cathedral, is the security services of Ukraine. And again, these are very large, sprawling complexes that obviously would house elements of command and control and be vital for ongoing war efforts. So the question is why hasn't Russian cruise missiles struck these targets? We constantly hear about the fact that the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, is on some sort of a Kremlin hit list. So if that is the case, why haven't we seen some of these complexes where the president of the Ukraine is known to reside and or frequent? Why haven't we seen some of those targets being hit by Russian cruise missiles, if in fact Russia sees Zelensky as a legitimate target? And we've not really seen that. In fact, downtown Kiev, being a fairly target-rich environment in terms of infrastructure to wage war, it has heavy amounts of such targets. And again, we have just not seen the type of strikes into downtown Kiev that you would think would occur in the course of a modern conflict. If we go back to the United States military engagements with Iraq, the 2003 invasion, even the 1991 invasion, in which the United States drove Iraqi forces out of Kuwait, we indeed observed U.S. airstrikes on command and control targets in both conflicts. In the conflicts with Yugoslavia over both the wars that were taking place in Kosovo, we observed U.S. cruise missiles hitting command and control targets. In fact, at one point, we hit the Chinese embassy in Belgrade. So, again, you have to ask the question, why are we not seeing that sort of activity by the Russian military within the confines of Kiev, especially at some of these targets that you would think would be vital on the Russian list of targets to engage. At the same time, in the south in the area of Crimea. Even at the start of the conflict, the vital Kerch Bridge that went over the Kerch Straits, linking Russia to the Crimea. It would seem that if the Ukrainians had the capacity to attack a Russian ship 80 miles off its coast, you would think that the possibility that we would possibly see a Ukrainian attack on the Kerch Strait bridge would in fact occur, but we have not seen that yet. Now we are hearing chatter in terms of the Ukrainians talking about the possibility of now going after the Kerch Strait bridge. Again, we'll zoom in there. It's a very large bridge that again links the Crimea with Russia proper, and for a long time, this is what has allowed the Russian Federation, when it was finally opened, to support and supply the Crimea region as the Ukrainians prevented the flow of supplies and water in via the north of the country. But interesting tidbit of information that I don't really see the mainstream media discussing. Quite frankly, there are a host of targets that I'm not going to get into all of them. I don't want to be accused of doxing the Ukrainian military or the Russian military for that matter. But there does seem to be a host of targets that the Russians have not targeted yet. And is that some sort of agreement prior to the conflict starting that the Russians would not go after the Ministry of Defense headquarters and the SSU or the SBU headquarters in downtown Kiev? Again, very, very hard to say at this point. But in terms of the ongoing conflict, not a lot has changed. We are continuing to see the Russians pound and shape the battlefield with heavy artillery and tactical aircraft. We continue to see the Ukrainians really taking a beating, especially in the eastern half of the country, in regards to continued Russian airstrikes and continued Russian multiple launch missile and cruise missile strikes that continue all across the east and in some cases the western areas of the country. Right now, it would appear that I would say at this point the Russians do not have initiative. They do not have momentum in this ongoing fight that is occurring in the Donbass region. I think they have met some of their objectives in the early stage of this operation. Now, this being still the early stages of this operation, I don't think we've seen the Russian military start to maneuver as it wants to or as it should in terms of seizing control and taking large amounts of Ukrainian territory, especially looking at eventually encircling and surrounding targets such as Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, and enveloping these key areas and pocketing these large formations of Ukrainian forces that we know have fortified themselves all the way from Donetsk to Severodonetsk, all the way over to just south of Izium. And again, right now, the Russians continue to prep the battlefield, but in terms of successful maneuver, we're just not seeing that. It is a very, very difficult battlescape right now for the Russian military. The Ukrainians are still able to maneuver and redeploy forces. You would think, given the capabilities of the Russian Air Force, or the assumed capabilities of the Russian Air Force, you would think that the Russians would have the ability to stop certain aspects of the Ukrainian redeployment strategy, in which they are meeting head on this Russian buildup and this Russian offensive in the southeast of the country. And unfortunately for the Russians, the Ukrainians are still able to maneuver and transport forces and supplies to much needed areas of the southeast of the country, which is then creating an environment where the Russians are not able to gain initiative and force supremacy to be able to overcome some of these fortified areas that the Ukraine has fortified. But that's what we're seeing right now. Will we see an expansion of the war? Could we see the Russians start to go after some of these very important targets that I have discussed at the beginning of the video? Actually kind of surprising, again, that we have not seen them do that. And what's even more mystifying is, again, the mainstream media doesn't really talk about those targets or even ask that question in terms of why haven't some of those targets been struck. It's just kind of an odd thing to occur within the confines of a conflict such as this. I mean, we have seen some command and control being attacked, of Ukraine being attacked by the Russians, but there is still quite a bit, especially in Kiev, that has simply been left alone and not attacked. And I can only assume possibly are the Russians looking at using that infrastructure at a certain point, or I really don't have an answer in terms of the why around we're not seeing the Russians go after some of those targets. But right now, I don't want to say it has the conflict has stagnated, but again, it's just right now very, very difficult for the Russians to gain terrain, and especially in this area in the southeast, where we have roughly anywhere from 70 to 80 battalion tactical groups operational by the Russians, but the Ukrainians are still holding firm and really preventing the Russians from gaining initiative. We can only ponder what things will look like if the Russians have some sort of breakout and are able to start fighting near Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. We anticipate that these cities have been indeed fortified and would be very, very difficult targets for the Russians to eventually reduce and take control over, much like we're seeing in Mariupol, where it would appear that the Kremlin has issued orders not to proceed with ongoing operations to seize control of the giant metallurgical plant located in the area, as you can see on my map, where the last remnants of Ukrainian forces are holding out. It's obviously a very, very difficult target, and it probably makes common sense for the Russians not to conduct an all-out assault on this facility, given its fortifications, and given that underneath it consists of Soviet-era bomb shelters and tunnels that would make it very, very difficult for Russian forces to overcome and expend large amounts of manpower and materiel in claiming this area. So it looks like the Russians, at least on the surface, are going to seal it off and look to quite simply to starve out those remaining Ukrainian forces that are located within this area. That has reportedly received a little pushback from the Russian Ministry of Defense, and especially local battlefield commanders. I believe we're looking to at some point finish this operation, and it would seem that this would end in a bittersweet victory, where they were not able to fully reduce and take control of that area. Outside of a siege type of strategy, which indeed we are now seeing. But again, not a lot of changes on the battlefield. We're continuing to watch the southeast and to see if the Russians can establish some sort of maneuver momentum it is looking very precarious right now for Russian forces to be able to continue this operation. I would have thought that the Russians may have hit a more extended tactical pause button and really focused on its air assets to continue to reduce Ukrainian forces and really focus on the interdiction of Ukrainian maneuver units that are maneuvering around the country, which the Ukrainians are still doing and are still effectively doing that, even with a large Russian Air Force that does have operational capacity over the eastern part of Ukraine. Again, just not something that I would have foreseen happening, and yet it is happening, and that's the nature of war. That's all we have for today. We'll continue to watch, report, and make more content for your consumption. Have a great day, everybody.